Hello there, everyone. Sam Leterna here with another episode of Wrestle Tea. I am live in Buda, Texas with none other than Busted Open Radio's own David LaGreca. How are you doing?
I'm great. It took me about 3 weeks to learn how to say the name of the town, but I think we're good, and I'm looking forward to tonight.
Awesome. Yeah, I had to do the same. I wasn't sure if it was Buda, Buda, and...
I think it's Buda. I was calling it Buda, and then I was calling it Buda, but I think it's Buda. Or is it? I don't know. But
I was told by the commentary team that people in Buda are very particular about the name, so we don't want to get any heat here, but you've gotten quite a bit of heat, shall we call it, especially with Thunder Rosa following her match against Britt Baker on AEW Dynamite. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, there really isn't a lot to say. I mean, it just shows you that Thunder Rosa, and I've said this in other interviews, I think she's one of the best wrestlers. She's one of my favorites of all time, but you always hear the cliche, don't meet your heroes, right? And unfortunately, I met one of mine, Thunder Rosa, and she's just not the person that I thought she was. And I'm going to tell you the whole story. I'm going to give you the exclusive of everything that's gone on.
Oh, yes. Okay? Give me the tea. We're on Wrestle Tea.
Yes. Here we go. Now, she told me in an interview, I had her on. Now, I've been having Thunder Rosa on Busted Open from the days that she was backyard wrestling in front of 5 people, okay? Now she's with AEW and NWA, and everybody thinks she's the greatest. Now, all of a sudden, she's disrespectful to me. That's number one. Number two, she promised on my show, Busted Open, that she was going to wear a Dave LaGreca girl t-shirt, either on AEW Dynamite or NWA Power, okay? I watch AEW Dynamite every week, never saw a Dave LaGreca shirt. I watch NWA Power every week, never saw a Dave LaGreca shirt. So that's problem number 2. Now, problem number 3. As people who listen to Busted Open know, I do a WrestleMania t-shirt challenge, which what I do is I wear a different wrestling shirt from the day after the Royal Rumble all the way to the first night of WrestleMania, okay? That's 70 days. That's 70 different shirts, all right? I wore 4 different Thunder Rosa shirts during those 70 days. I wore one Britt Baker t-shirt, and she went nuts. She went crazy. She vulgarities on social media and everything else, okay? Then I was nice enough to say, you know what? I'll let bygones be bygones. I welcomed her on Busted Open one more time. Our WrestleMania party is myself, Mark Henry, Tommy Dreamer, Bully Ray, a bunch of Hall of Famers, right? And on the show, she took the Dave LaGreca shirt that I spent $25 to buy. She ripped it and then wiped her butt with the shirt. Okay, so all I want from her are 2 things, 4 words, okay? I want to thank you for the house, the biggest house that this company has ever had. All right, Mission Pro Wrestling's been around for a while. The biggest night tonight, biggest box office. So I want to thank you from Thunder Rosa. Then I'm sorry for Thunder Rosa for all the things that she has said about me on social media and my own show. So there you go. That's the story. Now, you hearing the story, who do you think's right and who's wrong? Thunder Rosa's wrong and I'm right.
You know, I think that I have to remain diplomatic here because I am ring announcing tonight at Mission Pro for the first time, and I'm a tremendous fan of your work.
See, now this makes me upset. So now you have to sit on the fence because you're afraid of your job. You're afraid of, you're a ring announcer here. Now you're afraid of your job that she might fire you by speaking the truth. I feel bad for you. And this is another example how Thunder Rosa is a bad person.
Okay, so let's talk this encounter that you guys are going to have tonight, presumably. Could this end in wrestling for Dave LaGreca? I know that you've never locked up before.
I don't have an athletic bone in my body. All right, I know I'm a very handsome man, and I look about the age of 30, but I'm actually 49, just a couple months away from the age of 50. So no, can I wrestle? The answer is no, I can't do it. Now, it doesn't have to go violent. All she does is have to say thank you and I'm sorry, and then we can just move past this. If things do get violent, I'm just letting you know, I have a plan. I have a plan for tonight. If things go south, I have a plan.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to this encounter. I hope that both of you come out unscathed. And as you said, you don't have an athletic bone in your body. You do radio. So let's talk radio. Let's segue into that. So you've been hosting Busted Open Radio since 2009, and before that, you had been doing sports talk. How did you come into this wrestling talk show? I know that you've been a fan your whole life, but how did you convince Sirius to take on this endeavor?
Well, I've been trying to convince them almost since since the day I was hired at SiriusXM in 2004.
Wow.
And they really didn't want to take the chance. They didn't want to take the opportunity, so I had to prove myself, which I'm completely fine with. And this show, Busted Open, started one day a week for an hour, myself and Doug Mortman, and now it's morphed into 7 days a week if you think about the podcast and everything else that's involved in this show. And I have Mark Henry, Hall of Famer, Bully Ray, Hall of Famer, Tommy Dreamer, the innovator of violence. So Ryan McKenna was a great host as well. So now we have a big array of talent, and now it's the #1 sports talk radio show on SiriusXM.
That's fantastic, and with hard work and dedication, anything is possible, even for a niche sports deal like pro wrestling, because a lot of people like to knock pro wrestling, and there's very much so a devoted fan base to it still. Within the spectrum of radio or broadcasting in pro wrestling, what do you think is the mark of a good, pro wrestling personality, broadcaster, radio host?
Knowledge is important, knowledge of the history and what's going on right now. You have to be opinionated, and you can't be afraid to give your opinions. You can't worry about politics or what a company or certain people might think of you. You have to really be honest and be opinionated. But I think the most important thing in any field that delves in radio, wrestling, TV, is you have to be entertaining. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that I think Busted Open, whether it's myself and Mark or Tommy or myself and Bully Ray, is that we're very entertaining.
Definitely. I mean, you have a great group of, Hall of Fame caliber wrestlers to kind of bounce off of, and then with your experience as well, it's like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I mean, people want to hear about their knowledge and what they've been through, but they also want to hear about what they did last night and what they had for lunch or what they had for dinner, or problems they may be having at home. I think a big reason why this show is successful is that the fans, the Busted Open Nation, they feel like they're friends, they're family, and I've always treated my fans like they're friends and family.
Do you ever feel like, with recording 6 or 7 days a week for 3 hours at a time, I believe, right, 9 a.m. until noon,
Yep.
Does that ever get strenuous for you? Because I myself find that even doing, today, I'm doing 4 interviews. It won't be longer than an hour probably to record, but sometimes that can take a lot out of me. Do you ever, have trouble for, finding content or inspiration? How's that process for you?
Never. I can honestly say, in the 12 years, and we just had our 12-year anniversary this past week, I have never gone into a show saying, I don't know what we're going to talk about today. When it comes to wrestling and the people that I do the shows with, there's always topics to talk about. Whether it's something that's going on now or going back into history, there's always something to talk about when it comes to wrestling, and also the great array of talent that I have on the show.
Absolutely. Do you watch a lot of indie wrestling, or mainly television-based wrestling?
Well, I have to watch the television-based wrestling. I mean, Raw on Mondays, unfortunately. NWA, Impact, Ring of Honor, AEW, SmackDown. These are all shows that I have to watch. Impact, I have to watch all those shows. But I try to keep my eye on indie, and that's why I found out about Thunder Rosa, is through indie wrestling, So I always keep my eye on indie. I think indie is kind of the backbone of pro wrestling right now.
Okay, so you don't think the indies are dead? A lot of people have been saying that lately, all of the talent getting scooped up by the major companies. What's your hot take on that, Dave LaGreca?
And a lot of people think because of AEW that indie wrestling is dead, because the Young Bucks and Cody, who are really big on the indie scene before AEW started. And that's not true, because there's always a batch of new talent. Well, look what we're going to see at Mission Pro Wrestling. Some of these talents have been seen on major shows and major companies, but most of them haven't. And I think they're going to prove that indie wrestling right now is as strong as ever.
Absolutely. Well, let's make a comparison, because I know you're an 80s wrestling aficionado, particularly. I'm sure you know everything about the history of pro wrestling from its inception, but the territory days,
yeah,
and the way that people would have an opportunity to work multiple matches with the same guy in different parts of the country, and really, get those reps and get better, versus the indies today, where we have a similar system,
yeah,
maybe different mentality and a little more exposure content-wise, so you can't just repeat the same match over and over again, but you get that work rate going. So what do you think the pros and cons of the indies today versus the territory days are?
Well, I think right now with the indies today, it's like you said, very, very much like the territory system. But you know what? A bigger spotlight on you. When I first started watching wrestling, you only saw those certain certain wrestlers in that local market. Now with social media, with YouTube, you really have a chance to gain traction. So as far as health and being able to take it to another level, I think indie wrestling right now is as strong as the territories were in the 80s. And I always say my favorite years of pro wrestling was 1983 and 84. 83 was a very strong years for the territories, and 84 was like the building of the national product. But then I go to 2018 and 2019, just before the pandemic, when you really saw the strength of that there's more than just the WWE and all these alternatives and indie wrestling. So again, pro wrestling right now is as strong as ever.
If anything, one could say that maybe we're in that cusp where people were at in 1983, 84, 85,
Yep.
Kind of like this new horizon for wrestling, and maybe television wrestling and the indies, beginning to work together more instead of, having this kind of curtain up. Yeah.
And really, I feel like the only place where wrestling is divided is by the fans. The fans cause the division in pro wrestling, not the actual wrestlers or organizations. So I really think that in this upcoming year, that fans kind of appreciate all the products that are available to them. I can get 1,000 tweets that say, wow, great show today. And then the one tweet that says, boy, today's show really sucked. That's the one that I'm going to read and look at the comments. And it's unfortunate. I think that's just the way social media is that it really kind of breeds that negativity. But you got to find, like you said, that happy medium where you find it beneficial and find the positives.
We're in Texas. You love old school wrestling. I love world-class championship wrestling. It's what got me into, more vintage wrestling. So what do you think that we're seeing a rebirth of Texas wrestling at this very moment with talented women like Thunder Rosa, like Roxy, promotions like New Texas Pro Wrestling? I feel like we're kind of seeing that rebirth of Texas wrestling. Would you agree or disagree?
I would agree with that. And for me, and I don't know what's going to happen tonight with Thunder Rosa, but for me, as somebody who grew up in New Jersey but loves the Dallas Cowboys and loved and grew up on world-class championship wrestling, to walk into a ring in the great state of Texas is like a dream come true for me. So just the history of Texas wrestling, but when you look at what's going on right now with Mission Pro and its home base being here, I think no matter if it's 1981, 1985, or now in 2021, the foundation and the love kind of begins in the great state of Texas when it comes to wrestling.
Well, Mr. LaGreca, I want to leave you with this question. What has kept you in love with wrestling all these years? Because a lot of people fade in, they fade out. What keeps you here?
I think once you become a wrestling fan, it's in your DNA. So for those who have never been a fan and don't understand it, they probably won't get it unless you get that bug and you understand the magic that's pro wrestling. Once you feel that, like you feel it and I feel it and everyone that's going to be here, the hundreds of people that are going to be at Mission Pro tonight, once you have that, it's in your DNA, it's in your lifeblood, and you will always be a defender and a fan of pro wrestling, always.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that the fans can attest to that. Once again, thank you so much for watching Wrestle T. I would say I'm a Dave LaGreca gal. Yes. Maybe we have to get a gal shirt.
I do, we got one.
We do. Ooh, okay. Well, speaking of that, please follow Dave LaGreca on social media. Everything's in the bio, merch, all that good stuff. And, of course, tune into Busted Open Radio weekdays, actually 7 days a week, rather, 9 a.m. to 12 noon
Yep.
Eastern Time.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.